Hello, StuMac violin build followers. This is, I guess this would be episode number 3, I think, in the series. Looks like there's going to be quite a few episodes in this one. Back from a couple of weeks at work and ready to tackle the fitting the neck for the violin, which is going to be probably one of the most difficult and one of the most critical parts of the whole process. So I've purchased a couple of tools that should hopefully help me make this job a little easier and hopefully make sure it goes well. One of them is a Mortise Saw. Actually, it's a dovetail saw. It's a Japanese saw, very, very fine, very sharp. It's going to allow me to make. The plan is it'll help me to make the cuts on the heel and the back of the neck. Once I figure out where I need to cut it, make it fairly precise and make a fairly small cut so that again it can be more accurate. So that's one of the tools, and so the other tool that is essential, I guess, is a really good saw or a chisel. So I went and bought this Mortise Chisel. It's a 3/8 Mortise Chisel. You can get them all different sizes, but I thought that 3/8 might be about the right size. Now I talked with a carpenter friend of mine at work about whether I should actually use a saw or a chisel to do all of the shaping and the cutting on the neck. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the video, but what he suggested, and I had wondered about this, the grain of the maple runs at a different angle to what a person might be cutting with or trimming off with the chisel. So he said you could run into problems where you actually catch part of the grain and it takes a chunk out of the maple exactly where you don't want it to. So he recommended, probably pretty sound advice, using the saw to make that cut instead. So that's what I hope to do. First step in this process of fitting the neck is to spot glue or dummy glue the fingerboard and the nut onto the neck, and that's so that you can get the absolute precise measurements that you need. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I used a white pencil to mark 130 millimeters on the fingerboard on the side. So that's exactly where the edge of the violin will be. So that's one of the little tricks that they recommend. So anyways, I've got mixed up a little batch of hide glue, and not very much. I won't need very much to begin with, although this stuff doesn't really spoil once I mix this up, and once it hits the right temperature. The right process is to mix it up, heat it up to roughly 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you let it cool down, and it kind of, I don't know if crystallizes is the right word. Then when you heat it up again, it's ready to use. But I think since I've already spot glued the nut on here just to speed up this video process a little bit, I thought since I'm just spot gluing it in 2 or 3 spots, it's probably not that critical that I get this glue exactly right. A little warm in here since I've got some heat pumping off of this little glue pot in my little shop area here. So one of the things they always recommend is to have your clamping process and your clamps ready, since the hide glue sets quite quickly. And so I've got a spring clamp and I've got a C-clamp. C-clamp is buffered by some furniture coasters or dollies here. And I'm going to go ahead and spot glue this. So I'll just put about 3 little dabs on here. 1, 2, it's probably almost too much. 3, okay. I'll set that on. Make sure that it's all lined up perfectly well. slippery. So then I'll put the spring clamp on this end. And I'll go ahead and put the C-clamp on the other end. Making sure the edges are all just right. Tell that moved on me. Sort of running out of time to line it up, but I think I've got it. I think I've got it pretty close. A little trickier than what it looks. Well, I think that's going to have to be as close as I can get it. As close to perfect as possible. Really nice little ebony fingerboard and nut here. It's going to be interesting when it comes time to trim that nut down for the right height for the strings. That little Japanese saw there might come in handy for cutting the kerfs for the strings. Anyways, there we have it. The fingerboard is now tacked in place. Anxious to get at it. I'll be back.